He watched as she squinted and sobbed a silent wail that stuck in her throat that her chest wouldn't let out, and he walked forward and placed his hands upon hers and aimed the gun. The sound was like an earthquake, and it racked him in a new way this time. He watched as the bullet entered, and the horse, letting out one last twitch, went silent. He saw as his daughter kept her eyes closed, hands held up by his own, pulse echoing through his wrinkly fingers. She was a woman now, a farmer, and she secretly would loathe him for the next week. "Is it just me?" Lincoln asked Dakota at See-Through Inc. headquarters, the poodle terrier yapping on his lap in the attic. "Or doesn't something jump out at you when you consider the victim was a doctor?" Dakota was behind her desk chewing gum loudly, primping her poofy red hair and putting on mascara with one hand, fanning herself with a notebook sheet of paper in the other. She was ahead of the game and knew it, had already done the standard background work on Jamie Sillinger for him, collected and printed his official demographics, gathered phone records, internet records, the usual. "I think it's just you, boss," she kidded. "Everything jumps out at you." Lincoln looked at the large rafters overhead, at the unreachable corners. It sounded and smelled of an old cabin up here, creaking like a wicker rocking chair on an uneven surface. "You could just blow the place up." Charlie's Cantina. It seemed that every bar in the city was called a cantina. Every strip joint, too. "We are not blowing up a bar." It was a small joint, surrounded by tiny brown shrubs that, considering the hundreds of years they'd sat outside, should have already grown up into giant trees, or at least have turned to green. Michael and Barton Blank were known as the Blank Twins of the Devil, hired guns that never seemed to actually complete a job, and yet still end up hired for the biggest bounties in the country. "Wow, Art," he said. "In all the years I've eaten here, this is the first time I've ever seen a member of your staff make a mistake. Sure, there are always mistakes with housekeeping and the front desk, but never here. She forgot the spoon." Arthur smiled. "No, this soup is designed to drink, not to spoon. It's like a miso soup, but it's infused with bonito flakes and, believe it or not, finely ground rib meat as well." "Rib meat, huh?" Arthur nodded. Thomas brought the bowl to his lips, blew softly on the surface, and then sipped. "Jesus, it's incredible, man. You should put this one on the menu all the time." Dan scowled as if the beer had just soured in his mouth. "Anybody hurt?" "Well, that's a funny thing, because the way Herb told it, it was pretty chaotic. The oldest brother thought his 4-year-old sister was still in the house and went back in to get her, but he never made it back out. The rest of the family, the 4-year-old included, all came through with relatively minor stuff, scrapes and bruises, smoke inhalation. It was just the one boy who died. Burned up. 14 or 15 years old, I think." He let the story trail off, shaking his head, there being little else to add. "Jesus," Dan said soberly, feeling a chill despite the warm weather. "I didn't know that." Stildner smiled. "Not the sort of thing they like to advertise, is it?" Brilliant colors, mechanical voices, and parents rushing their laughing, sometimes crying children down the aisles. It was enough to make Robert break out in a cold sweat. It's not that he didn't like children. He did. But there were so many choices, rows and rows, aisle after aisle of toys, and he had no clue what to get his 7-year-old daughter for Christmas. He tugged at his suddenly too tight tie, loosening it, and unbuttoned the top button on his light blue shirt. His black overcoat topping his suit jacket was stifling. He stripped it off and folded it over his arm. "Monster High is cool. I want one of these," a blonde-haired girl about Amanda's age blurted, reaching for the doll box. "Don't touch, remember?" Her mother pushed the box out of reach. Robert turned away, dodging carts and small humans as he made his way out of the store. Today, the terms delegating and outsourcing are often used interchangeably, though you might think of delegating as taking tasks you might normally do and hiring someone else to do it. For example, instead of doing the internet research or compiling a database yourself, you might hire an assistant to do this for you as an employee or independent contractor. Legally, there are a number of guidelines for whether a person you hire is considered an employee or an independent contractor. So if in doubt, check what is the common practice for your area and industry.